You know what really breaks a person? Not the pain itself, but how it arrives. 4 words on a phone, no period, no apology, no explanation. I'm leaving with him. That was it. Like our 4 years were a hotel room she checked out of early. I stared at that screen so long the letters started blurring. Read it over and over, thought maybe I missed something. Some explanation, even 1 word. But no, she didn't even write his name. Just him, like I should already know. And you know what? I did. Her family had been planting seeds for months. At every dinner, hints spilling out like from a torn bag. Stefan's parents have connections, you know. Stefan got promoted again. Impressive at his age. Stefan's flying to Paris with his folks, isn't that sweet? Meanwhile, I was grinding away, trying to launch my own tech startup from a co-working space with flickering lights and a vending machine that ate my coins. But I was building something real, something I believed in, something we were supposed to believe in together. Her family didn't want belief. They wanted proof, the kind that comes with cufflinks and credit scores. I sat there staring at the message while the kettle screamed behind me. I'd made tea for both of us. Her favourite chamomile, which I always bought in bulk because she said it helped her sleep after long days. I stood there with 2 cups, one going cold, the other suddenly pointless. She didn't even come home to pack. Left while I was at a sales pitch. Took her coats, her charger, her stupid fiddle-leaf fig, and the vintage camera I got her last Christmas. But she left the framed photo of us from Coney Island. Of course she did. I almost wrote back. Typed 3 different responses. Seriously? I gave you everything. Good luck when he gets bored. But I deleted them all. Didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing I was destroyed. Instead, I turned off my phone, walked to the mirror and saw the version of me she'd left behind. Hair too messy, eyes too tired, a t-shirt with her foundation still on the shoulder. I looked like someone who'd lost. I felt like someone who'd lost. For 2 days, I didn't talk to anyone. My friend Marcus called 9 times. I didn't pick up. My landlord knocked about rent, ignored it. The app I was developing, I let a bug go live that crashed half the back end. Didn't care. But on the 3rd day, something shifted. I woke up still on the couch and saw her mug in the sink. The same one that said, "Let the world burn. I'm drinking tea." Stared at it for a full minute. Then I grabbed a marker and crossed out the word tea, wrote revenge instead. That's when I knew I wouldn't beg her to come back. I wouldn't prove anything to her parents. I would just win, not just move on. I would flourish. And she would watch. I didn't hear from her for weeks after that one-line breakup. No call, no message, just silence like I'd never existed. But her social media, that told me everything. Within days, she'd changed her profile picture to one of her and him at some ski lodge. Matching white coats, matching fake smiles. He was the type of guy who wore sunglasses at night, probably because his ego blocked out the moonlight. And the captions, "Grateful for new beginnings." New beginnings. I was still choking on the old ending. People started messaging me. Mutual friends. Some even had the audacity to ask if I was okay, like I'd been gently let down, not thrown out on the street like last week's garbage. One of them, Daniel, sent me a photo she'd posted in her story. Stefan, yeah, that's his name of course, buying her a brand new car, not a used hatchback. A fully loaded luxury SUV with a bow. A freaking bow. I stared at that photo for hours. Not because I missed her, but because I couldn't stop thinking how easy it was for her to trade everything we had for leather seats and lane assist. We'd struggled together. We'd sacrificed. She was there in the early days when I couldn't afford takeout, when I borrowed money from my cousin to buy a new laptop charger. She knew the blood I put into building my startup. She watched me work 3 nights straight. She held my hand when my first investor ghosted me. She told me I was destined for something big. But I guess destiny loses its charm when someone else already has the mansion. I was the struggle story. Stefan was the success shortcut. And what hurt most, she'd once told me money didn't matter to her, that her family's obsession with image made her sick. She claimed she wanted something real. I was real. Too real. So real that when life got uncomfortable, she ran back to comfort, back to being chosen, back to being accepted by her parents. I kept thinking, Maybe I should confront her. Maybe I should show up at one of their fancy dinners and say, "Hey, remember me? The guy you believed in before the stock options came?" But I didn't. Instead, I buried myself in work. Not because I was strong, but because I had nothing else. It wasn't glamorous. It was brutal. I slept on the couch most nights. My fridge was empty except for expired hummus and flat soda. I ignored messages. I skipped birthdays. My life became a loop. Wake up, stare at the screen, code, fix bugs, collapse, repeat. But something strange happened in that silence. My app started gaining users. Then a journalist wrote a small article about it. Then a TikTok influencer made a video. And just like that, people were talking about it. Funding offers started trickling in, then flooding. I didn't tell anyone at first, not even my closest friends. I wanted to keep it pure, for myself, because unlike her, I wasn't doing this for applause. I was doing it because I'd been rejected, dismissed, measured, and found wanting. And I was going to make sure the next time she saw me, it wouldn't be because I was standing at her door. She'd see me because I was everywhere she looked. The first time she saw my face again wasn't in person. It was on a billboard right in the middle of her part of town. No, I hadn't placed it there out of spite. It just happened. My company got its first major funding round, 7 figures, and the ad agency running the campaign chose the location without me even noticing. Poetic, right? The same street where her parents used to drive me around with condescending small talk now had my name towering over the traffic. I didn't post about it. Didn't brag. But she saw it. Oh, she definitely saw it. I know because a week later she unblocked me. Then came the likes on my old posts, the subtle breadcrumb trail, and the cherry on top a message at 1:14 in the morning. Just one word, congratulations. I didn't respond, not because I had nothing to say, but because I had everything to say, and none of it was worth giving her anymore. I'd spent months believing I was the broken one, that maybe she was right to leave, that maybe it was too much to ask someone to love a person building from the ground up. But now I was getting emails from people I used to beg for meetings. I was hiring staff. I had a real office. I even got my first company credit card with my name embossed in silver. But I wasn't just rebuilding myself. Something else had changed too. I met someone. Her name is Lena. And she's nothing like Sabine. She doesn't care that I don't wear suits. She doesn't treat ambition like currency to spend on approval. She listens not because she's trying to find weaknesses in what I say, but because she genuinely cares. We met at a networking event. I almost skipped it. I was tired, hadn't shaved, wearing the same sneakers I'd had for 4 years. But she found me interesting anyway. Not my pitch, not my product, me. And just as things with Lena started feeling real, Sabine wrote again. This time it was longer. I don't know if this is weird, but I drove past your billboard the other day. You look happy. Really happy. I'm glad you're doing well. You always deserved more than people gave you credit for. I didn't know what to do with that. It felt too late, too rehearsed, like she'd seen the ship sail away and wanted to swim after it just to say she tried. But I was done being her backup plan. I wasn't the emotional trampoline she could bounce on when her golden boy was busy playing manager. As for Stefan, he wasn't exactly aging well in this whole story. Mutual friends started whispering. Apparently he'd been working late a lot. Sabine stopped posting photos. Then someone told me she'd moved out of his apartment. The rumor was his parents didn't like her attitude. Her attitude. Ironic, right? But I didn't celebrate. I didn't even feel validated. I felt empty. Because when someone throws you away like trash and you rise from it, there's this hollow space where the revenge fantasy used to live. You realize that nothing you build will undo what they did. It just proves you never needed them in the first place. Still, I wasn't stupid. I knew this wasn't the last time I'd hear from her, because when people leave you for something shinier, they don't expect what they left behind to outshine them. It was a rainy Tuesday, the kind of day where the sky looks like it gave up halfway through morning. I was at the office finalizing a major partnership deal when the receptionist buzzed with a confused voice. She says she knows you. She's not on the calendar, but she won't leave. I knew before she even said the name. My stomach turned to ice. I walked out to the lobby and there she stood, Sabine, in a beige coat that probably cost more than my first year's rent. Hair perfect, face unreadable. But she wasn't glowing like before. Something in her eyes looked wrong, hollow. She tried to smile. Wow, this place is huge. I didn't respond, just stared. She was the same person who'd left me via text, who disappeared into luxury and only resurfaced when my name started appearing in magazines. And now she was here, uninvited, like no time had passed. I was in the area, she said, trying to keep her voice casual. Just wanted to see how you're doing. It was such a lie, I didn't even flinch. She wasn't randomly here. She'd planned this. The timing didn't escape me. 2 weeks after news of my company's upcoming expansion leaked, a press photo of me with a Fortune 100 exec had just gone semi-viral. Suddenly I was visible. Suddenly I mattered to her again. I led her to a small meeting room, out of sight from my employees. Last thing I needed was gossip. She sat across from me like it was a first date, but I didn't lean forward, didn't ask how she was, just waited. I made mistakes, she finally said. I didn't realize how much pressure my parents were putting on me. I thought Stefan was the right move. It felt safe, but it was all wrong, all fake. I stayed quiet. Part of me wanted to explode, remind her that she didn't just leave. She humiliated me. She let her parents talk about me like I was a phase she needed to outgrow, and she didn't defend me once. She treated our 4 years like a warm-up before her real life began. And now that her fantasy shattered, she remembered the guy with no money and too many dreams. She kept talking, said she missed how we used to laugh, how she still had that ugly candle I made for her that smelled like burnt cinnamon, asked if I was seeing anyone. I wanted to lie, wanted to say no, to watch that flicker of hope cross her face, just to rip it away. But I didn't. I told the truth. Yes, I said, her name is Lena. She's kind, real. Sabine looked down, and that's when I realized she'd come expecting a door. Instead, she found a wall. Do you hate me? She asked quietly. I didn't answer right away because the truth was more complicated than yes or no. I didn't hate her. I pitied her, because she had everything, and it still wasn't enough, because she left a man who would have given her the world for a man who only rented his. I don't hate you, I said, but I'm done giving space in a life you didn't believe in. Her lips trembled. She nodded like she'd expected it, like it still hurt anyway. She left without asking for more. No hug, no number, no maybe someday. Just a quiet exit and one last look like she was trying to memorize a room she'd never be let into again. And I sat there for a long time, staring at the door after it closed. Because that was the first time I truly felt like I'd won. Not from revenge, not from ego, but because I didn't need her anymore. Not even a little. The days after her showing up were strangely quiet. No follow-up message, no cryptic posts, no mutual friends reaching out saying she needed closure. It was like she'd disappeared again. Except this time it didn't sting. I wasn't sitting by the phone. I wasn't scrolling through her photos like some lovesick kid. I felt nothing except clarity. But the quiet didn't last. It was a Saturday afternoon. Lena and I had just gotten back from a charity tech event where I'd given a small talk about resilience and failure. Ironic, right? I opened the front door with that warm, exhausted glow you get when you do something that actually matters. Lena kicked off her shoes, smiled, and said she'd make coffee. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from Sabine. No words, just a photo. A dimly lit image of her apartment floor. Scattered boxes, a lone glass of wine. A moving out moment. Maybe symbolic, maybe bait. Below it, a line of text. I miss feeling safe. It hit me in a strange way, not because I pitied her, but because it was so predictable. The moment her applause ran out, she crawled back to the one person who clapped without needing a spotlight. She called me safe, like that was something bad. But what she really meant was stable. What she really meant was loyal. What she really meant was the kind of man who stays when it gets hard, not one who disappears once the shine fades. I didn't respond, didn't even show Lena. Not because I was hiding anything, but because I didn't want Sabine living in my new life. Not even as a shadow. She'd taken enough from me. Time, trust, peace. But that night, as Lena and I sat on the couch watching reruns of some silly 2000s sitcom, I couldn't stop thinking about how far I'd come, how close I was to giving up, to letting her family define me, to becoming the bitter, broke ex they'd predicted. Instead, I'd rebuilt myself with nothing but a broken laptop, a burned-out heart, and a stupid amount of stubbornness. And now I had someone who didn't love me despite who I was, but because of it. The next day I got another message from Sabine, longer this time. I keep thinking about all the little things, your stupid morning playlists, the way you'd slip notes into my shoes when I had interviews. I don't know why I threw all of that away. I just panicked. Everyone told me Stefan was the dream, but he wasn't you. He could never be. I wish I'd seen it sooner. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to type something biting, unload everything I'd swallowed for the past year. But I didn't, because silence was the message now. She was looking for redemption. I was looking forward. Later that week she showed up again. Not at my office this time, but at a panel I was speaking at. I saw her the second I stepped off stage. She was standing in the back, trying to blend in. Didn't come closer. Just watched. Probably wondering how I went from the guy fixing cables on the floor to the man on a lit stage, microphone in hand, talking about growth. When our eyes met, I nodded once. No smile, no wave, just silent acknowledgement. She nodded back, then turned and walked away. And in that moment I realized the old me would have run after her. The broken me would have believed that love deserves a second chance just because someone finally missed it. But the man I'd become, he was too busy living the life she didn't believe I could build. 3 weeks passed, and just when I thought it was all behind me, I got an invitation I never expected. A former mutual friend was throwing a rooftop launch party for some wellness startup, and I was asked to come as a guest speaker. Nothing too formal, just a 5-minute fireside chat about entrepreneurship and emotional resilience. The word ironic doesn't even begin to cover it. I almost declined, but Lena convinced me to go. "You've earned the spotlight," she said. "Besides, maybe it's time some people see what thriving actually looks like." The venue was stunning. All glass, soft jazz playing, fake smiles, and real cocktails floating through the crowd. People I hadn't seen in years suddenly knew my name again, and as I stood at the edge of the rooftop, sipping ginger ale and mentally prepping my speech, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in almost a year. Soft, familiar, and completely unwelcome. Eric. I turned around. Of course it was her. Sabine looked different. Not worse, just less polished. Like she wasn't trying so hard to impress anymore, which somehow made her more real than I'd seen her in a long time. But I didn't drop my guard. I wasn't going to rewrite history because of nostalgia. "Didn't think I'd run into you here," she said. A lie, obviously. She knew I was speaking. Everyone knew. My name was literally on the event flyer. I nodded. "Guess the city's smaller than we thought." She gave a half smile. "I saw your interview last week, the one on the business podcast. You talked about loyalty, about how some people only start believing in you after everyone else already does." I said nothing. Let the silence speak. She looked away for a second, then back at me. I wasn't ready for what we had. That's the truth. I thought I needed someone with power, but I needed someone with heart. You had both. I just didn't see it until it was gone. And there it was, the confession. The scene she'd probably rehearsed 100 times in her head, waiting for the moment when I'd soften, offer a drink, maybe suggest we catch up. The old me might have done exactly that, would have cracked the door just enough for her to slip back through. But while she was looking back, I'd spent every day looking forward. "I'm glad you figured that out," I finally said. "But you figured it out for yourself, not for us. And there's nothing left to salvage." She blinked a few times, surprised at how calm I was, how composed, like she'd expected me to be bitter or hurt or quietly waiting for her to say she'd made a mistake. But I wasn't that man anymore. And then, as if staged by karma itself, Lena appeared. She walked over, linked her arm through mine, and gave Sabine the warm, confident smile of someone who had nothing to prove. I didn't need to introduce them. Sabine knew exactly who she was. Lena asked if I was ready to go through my notes. I said yes. Sabine stepped back, eyes flickering with something between regret and resignation. "It was good seeing you," she said. I nodded once. "Take care of yourself." She lingered one more second, then turned and disappeared into the crowd like just another face in a sea of people trying to seem important. And as Lena and I walked to the stage together, I realized that the most powerful thing I'd ever done wasn't proving her wrong. It was proving myself right. A week after that rooftop encounter, I got a letter. Not an email, not a text. An actual handwritten letter, stuffed in a fancy envelope with my name scrawled in slanted cursive I hadn't seen since she used to stick notes on my bathroom mirror. Inside it was 5 pages long, front and back. 5 pages of apologies, memories, explanations, excuses, and of course, regrets. She wrote about how she kept waiting for the spark with Stefan, how she thought maybe stability would come later, how she felt like a visitor in her own life. Said she missed how I used to hum when I was focused, how I knew her coffee order by heart when she didn't, how I saw her before anyone else did. The part that stuck with me most was near the end. She wrote, I didn't realize I was breaking something real because I was chasing something shiny. That sentence sat in my chest for a long time. But the truth is, she didn't break anything. She abandoned it, and now she wanted to come back like it had just been a pause, like real life had an undo button. I didn't write back, didn't burn the letter or post it online for sympathy. Just shoved it in the back of a drawer under a stack of old notebooks. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I needed to remember how far I'd come from the version of me who would have seen that letter as hope. The crazy thing is, my life didn't explode after she left. It ignited. The business expanded into 3 cities. We got a government contract I thought was unreachable. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs who reminded me of myself. Guys working from cafes and sleeping 3 hours a night because they believed in something nobody else believed in. And Lena, she became more than just a partner. She was the person who celebrated my wins without asking for credit, who held me accountable when I doubted myself, who didn't care about the size of the stage. She always clapped the loudest, even when nobody else was watching. One night, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, I told Lena the whole story, from the beginning. Didn't hold anything back. Told her about the text, the yacht photos, the letter, everything. I thought she'd be hurt or annoyed, maybe even a little jealous, but she just smiled softly and said, I'm not afraid of your past. I'm just grateful it made room for me. That's when I knew. That's when I realized that everything I thought I'd lost was never really mine. I'd been clinging to an idea of love, something built on survival and hope, not trust and truth. What Sabine gave me in that last year wasn't love. It was a countdown to betrayal. And what I had now, this was peace. This was honesty. This was solid ground I didn't have to earn or beg for. She'd had her chance. She left. And no matter how many letters she wrote or how often she showed up in crowds, she couldn't rewrite the ending, because the man she'd left behind didn't exist anymore. The last time I saw Sabine wasn't planned. I wasn't dressed to impress. No big entrance, no crowd, no spotlight. Just a regular morning at a downtown cafe where I usually stopped before heading to the office. I was standing in line, half asleep, waiting for my usual black coffee, when I heard a soft gasp behind me. I turned around, and there she was. She looked smaller, not physically, emotionally, like someone who'd carried too much regret for too long and was starting to crumble under it. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I gave her a polite nod. You look good, she said with breathless awkwardness. Busy, important. Just getting coffee, I replied with a shrug. Not that important. She laughed nervously. I meant in life. I didn't say anything at first, didn't need to. I think my silence made it clear that the life she'd once left behind was now miles outside her reach. She asked if I had a minute to sit. Against my better judgment, I agreed, not out of curiosity, but because I wanted this chapter closed, not just ignored. We sat by the window. She told me how things ended with Stefan, how it fell apart once the image cracked, how he treated her more like a trophy than a partner, how her parents still disapproved of everything she did, even after she'd followed every plan they'd laid out for her. She admitted she was lonely, that she kept thinking about the life she'd thrown away, about me. I know it's too late, she said with a trembling voice, but you were the only person who ever saw me, not for what I could offer, but for who I really was. I sipped my coffee and looked her in the eyes, and for the first time I didn't feel anger, heartbreak, not even pity. I felt freedom. I did, I said quietly, and I loved you as well as I knew how. But you didn't see me, not when it mattered. And the man you left behind, he's not here anymore." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded like she'd seen it coming, like part of her had hoped for a different answer but deep down respected the truth. I stood up, told her I wished her peace, and walked away without looking back. And that was it. No grand scene, no final kiss, no dramatic explosion. Just two people who'd taken different paths, and one of them finally accepting she'd chosen the wrong one. Now, I wake up every morning next to Lena. We live in a modest but beautiful house on the outskirts of the city. She makes coffee while I review pictures. We argue about which movie to watch and who forgot to unload the dishwasher. It's not a fantasy, it's real, and that's what I always wanted. Not someone who wanted the idea of me, but someone who loved me when I had nothing and still stands beside me now that I've built everything. My business is thriving, my heart is healed, my past is closed. And the best part, I didn't have to get revenge. I just had to grow, quietly, honestly, completely. She lost something rare the day she left, but I found something priceless. Myself. The man who didn't give up, who didn't become bitter, who understood that some people have to leave you so you realize you never needed their approval to be extraordinary. And while she sits wherever she is now, probably scrolling through old photos wondering how it could have been, I'm living the life she never believed I was capable of building. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood that the best revenge isn't a spectacle. It's silence. It's growth. It's a life so damn good you don't even think about proving it to anyone anymore. I won, not because she lost, but because I never stopped believing in the version of me that nobody else wanted to believe in. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough.